All right. Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. We're always keeping an eye out for the biggest stories breaking around the world. And, well, this one is certainly making waves. Marine Le Pen just got hit with a pretty serious embezzlement conviction.
Yeah, no kidding. And with a 5-year ban on holding any kind of public office tacked on, that's a big deal.
So we knew we had to jump on this one, right? Get you all the details.
Absolutely. To really understand what's going on here, we dug into reporting from a whole bunch of sources. Like, you've got your French outlets, the local, France 24, even Al Jazeera's English coverage.
Right. And to get a wider perspective, we've got the South China Morning Post, The Guardian, even Haaretz in Israel.
And to round it out, ABC News, Salon.com, and we had to check out what the Daily Mail was saying.
Always good for a strong opinion, huh?
Exactly.
But really, what we're aiming to do here is break this whole thing down. Like, what are the actual charges against Le Pen? What does this verdict actually mean for her and her party, the National Rally?
Right. And how does this all play into the wider political landscape in France and even across Europe?
So much to unpack.
Tons.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. The verdict itself. What exactly did the court find Le Pen guilty of?
So the main charge was embezzlement. It's specifically, they're saying she was involved with setting up these fake jobs at the European Parliament. And this wasn't just a quick thing. We're talking a period from 2004 all the way to 2016.
Wow. Okay, so over a decade.
Yep. And it wasn't just her. 8 other people were also convicted. They were accused of misusing, get this, up to 3 million euros. That's European Parliament money.
3 million.
Euros, yeah. And the accusation is that they were using this money to pay people who were, on paper, European Parliament staff. But in reality, these people were working for her party, the Rassemblement National, back in France.
So it's not like they were directly putting the money in their own pockets, but more like using EU funds to prop up their party back home.
Yeah, you got it. And it's interesting, some of the reports dig into who these staff members supposedly were. You've got a bodyguard, a secretary, even a graphic designer.
So positions you might expect a political party to need.
Exactly. And the prosecution really hammered on this point. They said these roles, they were basically benefiting the National Rally in France, not actually doing work for the European Parliament. There are even reports that some of these people never even set foot in Brussels or Strasbourg, where, the parliament actually operates.
Okay, so that starts to paint a picture.
Mm.
In this case, it hasn't exactly come out of nowhere, right?
Right. It actually goes back a ways. You might remember this was first flagged back in 2015. And it's also worth noting that Le Pen's father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, the founder of the party, he was initially caught up in this too. But because of his health, he was excused from the trial before he died earlier this year.
Right, right.
So yeah, this has been brewing for a while.
Okay, so now let's get into the sentence. I mean, that 5-year ban on holding public office, that seems like a huge deal. Can you break that down a bit more?
Sure. So the court basically said Le Pen is barred from holding any elected or appointed public office for 5 years. And this is where it gets really interesting. The ban is effective immediately. They even use this phrase in the French reports, avec exécution immédiate.
Ooh, so no waiting around, no grace period or any...
Nope. Which immediately throws her plans for the 2027 presidential election into question.
Right, because that's just around the corner.
Yeah. And on top of that ban, she also got a 4-year jail term, although 2 of those years are suspended. So she'd likely serve 2 years in the community, probably with some kind of monitoring, like an ankle bracelet or something. Plus, she's got to pay a hefty fine. $100,000.
Wow, no getting around it. That's a serious sentence. And the judge's reasoning for making the ban immediate, it seems pretty strongly worded. Like, what was the justification there?
Well, the judge who presided over the case, Bénédicte Perthuis, she specifically said there was a risk of Le Pen committing the same offenses again. And she also talked about this idea of a major disturbance of public order if someone with a conviction like this was allowed to run for president.
Huh. So, like, it would shake people's faith in the system.
Yeah, exactly. So it's clear the court really sees this as a serious offense with potentially big implications for, stability in French politics.
Now, something I found interesting was that one of her co-defendants, Louis Alliot, he also got sentenced and even got hit with a ban, but his isn't effective right away.
Yeah, that's an important difference. Louis Alliot, he's the current mayor of Perpignan, right? He got an 18-month jail term, but 12 of those months are suspended. He also has an €8,000 fine and a 3-year ban from holding public office. But the court decided his ban wouldn't kick in right away.
So why the different treatment?
Well, the reasoning they gave was that they wanted to preserve the freedom of voters who chose their mayor. So it seems like they're trying to balance things out, thinking about the people who voted for him locally and making sure they still have their chosen representative while he goes through the appeals process.
Interesting. Okay, so we've talked about Le Pen and Alliot, but what about everyone else involved in the case? Like, what kind of sentences did the other co-defendants get?
Yeah, so there were a bunch of different penalties handed down. Thierry Legier, he was identified as Le Pen's bodyguard. He got a 12-month suspended prison sentence and is banned from holding public office for 2 years.
Okay, so no jail time for him.
Right, just the ban.
Yeah.
Now, Jan Le Pen, it's not always super clear how they're related, but the name suggests family ties, right? He got a 12-month suspended prison sentence too, but no ban from holding office. Then you have Nicolas Bay. He's a member of the European Parliament. He got a 12-month prison sentence, but half of that is suspended. So he's looking at 6 months behind bars and then 6 months in the community. Plus, an €8,000 fine and a 3-year ban from holding public office that takes effect immediately.
Okay, so a bit more serious for him.
Yeah. Next, Waleran de Saint-Just, he's a local councillor, got a 3-year prison sentence with 2 years suspended, meaning he'll spend 1 year in the community. He also has a $50,000 fine and a 3-year immediate ban.
Oof, that's gotta hurt.
And finally, Bruno Gollnisch, another MEP, got a 1-year prison term to be served in the community with an electronic tag, a $50,000 fine, and a 5-year immediate ban.
Wow, okay, so a real mix of penalties there.
Definitely. The judges took into account a lot of factors, it seems.
Right. Okay, so back to Le Pen. I mean, this immediate ban on holding office, that's obviously a massive roadblock for her, especially with the 2027 election on the horizon. What options does she even have at this point?
Well, her main play right now is to appeal. She's already said she'll challenge both the guilty verdict and the ban, and she's taking it straight to the top, the Conseil Constitutionnel.
So to France's highest constitutional court.
Yep. They're the ones who have to decide if this whole thing holds up, legally speaking. And they'll also be considering the whole freedom of elections thing, which is a big deal in the French Constitution.
So they're weighing, like, individual rights against the legal system.
That's the crux of it.
Okay, so is there a chance they could actually overturn the ban?
It's definitely possible, but it's not a slam dunk. Even though the Conseil Constitutionnel tends to move faster than regular courts, appeals processes still take time. Could be months, could be even longer. And that's why this immediate ban is so crucial. If it's still in place by 2027, she's legally blocked from running for president.
It's a race against time, basically.
It really is. And remember, Le Pen herself has called the possibility of being barred from running a political death sentence. So she knows how high the stakes are.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a major turning point in her career, wouldn't it?
No doubt.
And there's this other wrinkle, too. Some reports mention that her current position as a member of the French National Assembly isn't affected by this ban right away. How does that work?
That's a really good point. So the ban, at least initially, doesn't automatically remove her from her seat in the National Assembly. That's like the lower house of parliament in France. But here's the catch. If President Macron decides to dissolve parliament and call for new elections, like he did back in 2024, she wouldn't be allowed to run while the ban's in effect. So for now, she's safe, but her future in French politics is definitely hanging in the balance.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation for sure. So this verdict, it's obviously sparked a lot of reactions, right? Both within France and internationally. What kind of support has Le Pen gotten since the news broke?
As you'd expect, her party, the National Rally, has been pretty vocal. They've called the whole thing an unjust condemnation. And she's also gotten support from some pretty high-profile figures outside of France. Elon Musk, for example, he's been drawing comparisons to the legal troubles Donald Trump's been facing.
Oh, interesting. So playing into that whole idea of a political witch hunt.
Exactly. And then you've got Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary. He came right out and said, "Je suis Marine." So yeah, she's got some powerful backers in her corner.
That's significant. What about within France itself? I imagine there's some mixed feelings there.
Oh, definitely. You've got some of her political opponents, even those who are ideologically very different from her, who've expressed concerns about what this means for French democracy. Laurent Wauquiez, he's a big name in the conservative La Républicains party. He said the verdict puts a very heavy weight on our democracy.
So like it's setting a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, kind of. And then you have figures on the right and far right, guys like Eric Ciotti and Eric Zemmour. They've been pretty critical of the decision, too, saying it's not up to judges to decide who the people can vote for. Zemmour even said something like, "It is not for judges to decide who the people must vote for."
So that idea of judicial overreach is a common thread there.
It is. And even internationally, you have Matteo Salvini from Italy. And get this, even the Kremlin has weighed in. They're criticizing the ruling, calling it undemocratic and politically motivated.
Huh. Well, that certainly adds another layer to this whole thing. So this conviction, it's got to have a major impact on the national rally, right? I mean, they've been on the rise in French politics. They were looking strong heading into 2027 with Le Pen as their candidate.
It's definitely a blow. I mean, Le Pen's been the face of the party for decades, going all the way back to when it was the Front National. This throws a real wrench in their plans for the next election.
And with Le Pen potentially out of the picture, who's even there to take the reins? What about Jordan Bardella?
Yeah, he's the name that keeps popping up. He's the current president of the National Rally and was Le Pen's deputy. He wasn't involved in this whole embezzlement thing. And remember, he was their pick for a potential prime minister during the 2024 election, so he's got some experience, especially with younger voters. But there's this feeling within the party, at least according to what we're reading, that Le Pen, despite all this, might still be their best shot at actually winning the presidency.
So even with the legal trouble, they might still see her as their strongest contender.
It's a tough spot for them.
Totally. Okay, let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
The 2027 election was already shaping up to be a big one, mainly because Emmanuel Macron can't run again. He's term limited, right? So how does this conviction change the game?
Well, without Macron in the running, a lot of people saw 2027 as Le Pen's big chance, especially after the National Rally became the largest single party in the National Assembly after those snap elections in 2024. Now, the question is, will this conviction rally her base, reinforce that idea that the establishment is out to get her? Or will it hurt the party if she can't run, leading to infighting or a struggle to find a new leader who can capture the same level of support?
So on one hand, it could make her a martyr in the eyes of her supporters, but on the other, it could throw the whole party into chaos.
Exactly. It's a real fork in the road for them.
It's interesting. Some people are comparing this whole situation to what happened with Donald Trump in the U.S. He faced a lot of legal challenges, but still maintained a strong base of support. Do you see any parallels there?
It's a good comparison. Trump's legal problems didn't really hurt his standing with his core supporters. And Le Pen has been saying this whole case against her is politically motivated. So in the eyes of her diehard fans, this conviction could actually make her seem more credible. But it's important to remember that French politics and the public opinion landscape there are different from the U.S., so it's not a perfect analogy.
Right. And one of Le Pen's big strategies over the years has been to try and make her party seem less extreme, less scary, more mainstream. How do you think this conviction affects those efforts?
It's definitely a step back for her in that regard. I mean, you have these accusations of serious financial wrongdoing, and then the court using pretty strong language about the party treating the European Parliament like a cash cow, setting up a war machine to embezzle funds. That doesn't exactly scream responsible or trustworthy.
Yeah, that's not the image you want to project if you're trying to win over moderate voters.
Not at all. And the court also said that Le Pen played a central role in this whole scheme, calling it a democratic bypass that tricked both the parliament and the voters. That's a tough one to come back from if you're trying to appear more mainstream.
It definitely puts a dent in that demonization strategy.
Sure.
So, bottom line, this conviction and the immediate ban on holding public office, it's a major turning point in French politics.
Absolutely. It immediately puts Marine Le Pen's political future in doubt, especially her hopes of running for president in 2027. And it throws a huge question mark over the future of the National Rally. Everything hinges on what happens next with the appeals process, especially what the Conseil Constitutionnel decides. But regardless of the legal outcome, the political fallout is already happening. We could see a surge of support for Le Pen, or the party might splinter and struggle to find a new leader who can fill her shoes.
Yeah, it's a fascinating, honestly, a pretty unpredictable situation. So as we wrap this up, here's something for everyone listening to think about. With this ban in place and a potentially long legal battle ahead, how do you think things will shake out within the French far right over the next year? Will they rally behind Le Pen, even if she can't run? Or will we see a power struggle emerge? And looking beyond just Le Pen, what other factors will come into play as the national rally gears up for the 2027 election? This is a story that's far from over, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it here at The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening.